Beloved, hear this. We are standing at the edge of a prophetic moment. The final days of this month are not ordinary days. They are appointed times. The world may look dark, the storms may rage, but tonight, God whispers something powerful into your spirit. You will be rewarded. Not tomorrow, not years from now, but tonight at the closing of the season. God's word says, do not grow weary in doing good, for in due season you shall reap if you do not faint. So Galatians 6:9, and tonight, yes, tonight is a due season for someone under the sound of this message. There is a truth that can shake the deepest parts of your spirit if you truly receive it. God never forgets what you do for him, even when the world does. You may feel invisible, overlooked, or forgotten by people, but heaven has a record of every tear, every prayer, and every small act of obedience you performed when no one was watching. What seems hidden to man is magnified before the throne of God, and the reward comes not when others recognize you, but when God decides the appointed time has come to honor your faithfulness. Imagine the quiet nurse who works through the night shifts in silence, caring for the forgotten elderly, never receiving applause, promotions, or even thanks, yet she continues faithfully with love in her heart because she knows she is serving more than patience. She is serving God. Others may never see her sacrifices, her exhaustion, or the prayers she whispers between her tasks, but God sees it all. Years later, when her own family faces a crisis, help and provision come from unexpected places. Medical bills are paid, doors of opportunity open, and she finds herself surrounded by blessings that no man orchestrated. That is how God honors hidden faithfulness. He remembers when others forget. He rewards when others withhold. And the Bible makes this truth unshakable, for we see it in the story of Joseph, the young man thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, and imprisoned for a crime he did not commit. For years, Joseph's faithfulness was hidden in obscurity, serving in Potiphar's house with diligence, refusing sin even when temptation called, remaining steadfast in prison though forgotten by those he helped. The world saw only a prisoner, a slave, someone discarded and left behind, but God saw a faithful servant, a dreamer who clung to hope, a heart that would not compromise integrity. And in one divine moment, at the appointed time, the same Joseph who was invisible was elevated to the right hand of Pharaoh, entrusted with saving nations from famine. The faithfulness he displayed in secret became the foundation for a reward that shook history. That is the God we serve, the one who says in Matthew 64, your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. Beloved, perhaps you feel like your prayers are unheard, your giving unnoticed, your service unappreciated, your love unreturned. But I declare to you tonight, nothing is wasted in the kingdom of God. Every small seed you planted in faith is alive in his sight, and though it may not sprout immediately, it will bloom in its season, and when it does, the harvest will astonish you. Do not despise the days of obscurity, for they are the proving ground of greatness. Do not despise the nights of loneliness, for they are the preparation chambers of glory. Do not despise the unnoticed sacrifices, for they are the very fragrance that rises before God as a sweet offering. Hidden faithfulness is never truly hidden because heaven is watching and heaven never forgets. The applause of men fades quickly, but the reward of God is eternal, overflowing, and unstoppable. So keep serving when no one thanks you. Keep praying when no one listens. Keep giving when no one notices. Keep believing when no one understands. Because the God who saw Joseph in the prison, the God who saw the widow's 2 mites, the God who saw every tear you cried in your midnight hour is the same God who says to you now, I have seen your faithfulness, and your reward is coming. There are few things more painful to the human heart than waiting, and there are few seasons that test our faith more than the ones where heaven seems silent, where the promise seems to tarry, and where every prayer feels as though it vanishes into the night unanswered. But let this truth burn deep within you. Delay is not denial. When God gives you a promise, when he speaks a word over your life, when he whispers destiny into your spirit, there is no power in heaven, earth, or hell that can erase it. There may be detours, there may be waiting, there may be obstacles that stretch your faith to its very edge, but the delay is only God's way of preparing the blessing and preparing you to carry it. Think of the farmer who plants a seed in the ground. If he judged the seed on day 2, he might believe it has died, but what he cannot see is that underground in hidden places, the seed is breaking, roots are forming, and life is beginning. The delay between planting and harvest is not death, it is development. And so it is with God's promises in your life. What seems silent is not absent. What seems delayed is not denied. What seems still is not stagnant. God is at work in dimensions you cannot see, arranging, aligning, and preparing something far greater than you imagined. I think of a young woman who longed to have children, who prayed for years while her friends and family all embraced motherhood, and she cried herself to sleep many nights wondering why God was silent toward her. She waded through medical treatments, disappointments, and endless questions, but she clung to hope with trembling hands. After nearly 2 decades, When she and her husband had nearly given up, adoption came into their lives. An unexpected call from an agency about a newborn baby abandoned and needing a home. That night she held a child in her arms, and through her tears she whispered, "You were worth the wait." Looking back, she realized the long delay had prepared her heart to love in ways she could not have imagined. And the child who was entrusted to her was part of a divine plan, far greater than her own. This is how God works. What feels like delay is often God weaving something beyond your imagination, a redemption that will one day cause you to look back and say, "No, I see. He never denied me. He was preparing me." And the scriptures themselves resound with this truth, especially in the story of Abraham and Sarah. God promised Abraham descendants as numerous as the stars, yet for decades the womb of Sarah remained barren. Year after year, the promise seemed delayed, and hope grew thin. Sarah even laughed when the word came again, for how could it be at such an old age? Yet the God who cannot lie, the God who is faithful, did not forget. At the appointed time, Sarah conceived and bore Isaac, the son of promise. Abraham waited 25 years for that word to be fulfilled, but when it came with glory, with joy, with undeniable evidence that delay was never denial. It was divine timing. And the scriptures tell us in Habakkuk 2:23, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak, and not lie though it tarry. Wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry." Child of God, you may be in a season where it feels like everything you hoped for has been delayed. Your healing, your breakthrough, your financial restoration, your family's salvation. But let this word strengthen you. God has not forgotten. Heaven has not gone silent. The promise has not been canceled. The delay you feel is a sign that God is still writing, still working, still aligning. Sometimes the delay is because the promise is too big for your current capacity. So God stretches your faith, deepens your roots, and expands your character so that when the blessing comes, it will not crush you but elevate you. Sometimes the delay is because God is moving people, resources, and even nations into position to intersect with your destiny at the right hour. Sometimes the delay is because what you ask for is too small compared to what He has planned, and He will not give you the lesser when He has prepared the greater. Do not let impatience trick you into compromise. Do not let discouragement deceive you into quitting. Do not let silence convince you that God has walked away. Remember Joseph, who dreamed as a boy, but waited years through betrayal, slavery, and prison before the dream came to pass. Remember Hannah, who wept bitterly for a child until, in God's perfect timing, Samuel was born and became a prophet who shook nations. Remember the Israelites, who wandered 40 years in the wilderness because the land of promise required a generation ready to inherit it. Delay is never denial. It is divine process, divine timing, divine preparation. And if you can endure the waiting, if you can remain faithful in the between, if you can continue sowing seeds when you do not see fruit, you will live to witness the fulfillment, and it will come suddenly, swiftly, overwhelmingly, and you will say, as the psalmist declared, "This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes." So tonight, let faith arise again within you. Let hope rekindle like a flame in the darkness. Let your spirit proclaim even in the waiting, "My God has not denied me. He is preparing me, and though it tarry, I will wait, for it shall surely come." For the one who promised is faithful, and His delays are only doorways into greater glory. There is a truth that pierces deeper than material gain, deeper than outward blessings, deeper even than miracles of healing or breakthroughs of finance. It is this: the greatest reward God gives is not in what He places in your hands, but in what He places in your heart. The treasures of this world may satisfy for a season, but they cannot last. Money fades, houses crumble, achievements are forgotten, but the peace of God, the joy of His presence, the strength of His Spirit, these are rewards no thief can steal, no storm can shake, no death can destroy. Many pray only for the earthly manifestations, the job, the promotion, the healing, the breakthrough. And yes, God in His goodness provides these, but if that were all He gave, then we would still be empty, for the soul cannot be filled with things that perish. The true reward is His presence, the sweet assurance that He is with you, the unshakable anchor that even if the world crumbles around you, you remain unmoved because God Himself is your portion. Think of the story of a man who lost everything in a single night. His business burned down, his savings vanished, and his future seemed in ashes. He confessed later that in those early hours he felt as though God had abandoned him. But as he sat in the rubble, broken and weeping, he said he suddenly felt a peace descend on him like a warm blanket. It was not logical, it was not explainable, but it was undeniable. Though he had no money, no property, no plan, he found himself whispering through tears, "The Lord is here with me." That peace carried him through months of rebuilding. And though it took years to recover financially, he would later testify that what he received in that dark moment was more precious than any profit he ever made. He found the God of peace, the God who rewards not just with things, but with Himself. And the Bible bears witness to this greater truth in the story of Paul, the apostle who endured more hardship than most of us could imagine, beaten, stoned, shipwrecked, imprisoned, rejected. And yet he declared in Philippians 3:8, "I count everything as loss compared to the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord." For Paul, the greatest reward was not escaping prison, not avoiding trials, not gaining wealth or reputation. It was knowing Christ, sharing in his presence, and carrying his spirit wherever he went. This is why Paul and Silas could sing hymns at midnight in a dungeon, bruised and bleeding, because they had a reward within that no chains could bind, no jailer could confiscate. That is the secret of the kingdom. God may bless your hands, but his true blessing is when he blesses your soul. When peace floods your heart in the middle of chaos, that is reward. When joy rises within you while the world mourns, that is reward. When strength fills you to keep going when everything in you wants to quit, that is reward. And the truth is, God often allows us to walk through seasons where earthly rewards seem withheld so that we might discover the greater, eternal reward of his presence. If he gave you only the material, you might mistake the gift for the giver. But when he allows the world to be stripped away and then fills you with himself, you discover a treasure that cannot be lost. Child of God, do not measure God's faithfulness only by the things you can hold in your hands. Measure it by the unshakable peace he gives you in the storm, by the joy that bubbles up in the desert, by the assurance that no matter what comes, you are not abandoned. For Jesus himself declared, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid." John 14:2-7. Notice this. He did not say, "I will give you houses or riches or crowns," though he is able to do all of that, but the reward he highlighted was peace, his own peace, a supernatural calm that defies logic. And in Galatians 5, the fruit of his Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. These are not temporary gifts, but eternal ones, the kind of rewards that carry you not just through this life, but into eternity. So when you pray, yes, believe for the breakthrough, believe for the miracle, believe for the provision, for our God delights to bless his children. But do not miss the greater gift he is offering himself. To walk with him in intimacy, to sense his spirit guiding you, to know his voice in the quiet of the night, to feel his nearness when the world rejects you. That is the crown jewel of reward. And when you taste it, when you truly grasp it, you can lose everything else and still be unshaken, because you will have discovered what Paul discovered, that Christ himself is the prize, the pearl of great price, the treasure hidden in the field, worth more than all you could ever own. Let your heart rest in this tonight. The greatest reward is not what you receive from his hand, but who you receive from his heart. And once you have him, you lack nothing. There is something profoundly mysterious about the midnight hour, for it is the darkest point of the night, the moment when shadows seem deepest and silence heaviest. And yet it is also the turning point when night begins to give way to morning, when what was hidden begins to break forth into light. And it is no accident that God often chooses the midnight hour to bring about the greatest breakthroughs in his people's lives, for divine exchange happens in the midnight hour. Midnight is when endings and beginnings meet, when despair collides with hope, when chains break and doors open, when tears turn into testimonies and defeat transforms into destiny. Many of us know what it feels like to be in a midnight season, not simply in the clock of time, but in the soul, when circumstances feel the darkest, when prayers seem unanswered, when the weight of life presses so heavily that it feels as though dawn may never come. But it is in this very moment, at this very point of seeming hopelessness, that God often works his greatest wonders, because in the midnight hour, human strength is exhausted and divine power is revealed. Consider the real-life story of a man who lost his job, his home, and his family in a financial collapse. He found himself homeless, wandering the streets at night, ashamed and broken, without food, without direction. And on one particularly cold evening around midnight, he sat on the steps of a church, too embarrassed to go inside, yet too weary to move on. As he sat there, a member of the church's prayer team happened to step outside for air and saw him, invited him in, and prayed with him. That night, though nothing about his outward circumstances changed instantly, something shifted deep within his spirit. He said he felt a weight lift, chains break, and hope awaken in his soul. Within months, he was working again, slowly rebuilding, but the true miracle had already happened that midnight. The exchange of despair for hope, the exchange of brokenness for new beginnings. This is how God works. He allows us to come to the midnight so that we may experience his sudden deliverance, his transforming power, his supernatural intervention. And the scriptures give us one of the most powerful midnight stories in Acts 16, when Paul and Silas, beaten and chained in the inner prison, began to pray and sing hymns to God at midnight. Picture this: bloodied, bruised, and bound, with no natural reason to rejoice, they lifted their voices in praise, and heaven responded. Suddenly there was an earthquake so violent that the prison foundations shook, doors flew open, and chains fell off not just them but every prisoner around them. Midnight became the hour of liberation, not just for Paul and Silas, but for an entire household, because the jailer, witnessing the miracle, asked what he must do to be saved, and he and his whole family came to faith that night. This story reveals the mystery of the midnight hour. It is when your song is the hardest to sing that it becomes the most powerful. It is when your praise seems most illogical that it becomes most effective. It is when you choose faith over fear in the darkness that light begins to break forth. The midnight hour is not the end. It is the setup for God's intervention. Beloved, do not despise your midnight, for it is pregnant with miracle. Do not curse the darkness, for it is the stage on which God will display his glory. Do not assume silence means absence, for heaven is closest when earth feels coldest. The midnight cry is where divine exchange happens. Chains for freedom, sorrow for joy, despair for hope, weakness for strength, loss for restoration. You may be in a midnight season right now, in your health, in your marriage, in your finances, in your soul. But hear this: God is still the God of midnight. Just as surely as he shook the prison for Paul and Silas, just as surely as he turned mourning into dancing for countless saints, just as surely as he transformed the cross of Calvary, the darkest midnight of all history, into the dawn of resurrection morning, he will turn your midnight into a testimony. Hold on, sing your song, lift your prayer, because at midnight, when it feels the darkest, the exchange is already happening. You are stepping from bondage into freedom, from silence into song, from night into dawn, for the God who rules the hours has appointed your midnight as the birthplace of your miracle. Expectation is the language of faith, and faith is the key that unlocks the promises of God. For when the Lord declares that a season has come, when he speaks of reward, when he whispers into your spirit that something is about to shift, the posture of your heart must be one of readiness, anticipation, and expectancy, because God moves most powerfully when his people are prepared to receive. So many live with closed hands and closed hearts, waiting to see before they believe, waiting to feel before they praise, waiting for manifestation before they prepare, and yet faith demands the opposite. It calls you to build the ark before the rain falls, to dig the trenches before the water comes, to set the table before the banquet begins. Expectation is not wishful thinking. It is prophetic alignment with the word of God, an inner conviction that if God has said it, then it is already set in motion, and my role is not to question, but to prepare and to believe. I remember hearing the story of a woman who prayed fervently for years for her prodigal son to return to God, though he had wandered far, drowning in addictions and running with the wrong crowd. She never stopped setting a place for him at the dinner table every Sunday, even when the chair sat empty. Her neighbors thought she was strange. Her friends suggested she was wasting hope, but she would smile and say, "One day, my son will sit here again." After more than a decade, one Sunday evening, as she prepared dinner as always, the door opened and her son walked in broken, weary, ready to come home. That night, he not only sat at the table, but knelt in prayer and surrendered his life to Christ. Her expectation became her testimony. She had prepared the table long before he arrived, and when the promise manifested, she was ready. This is the power of expectation. It draws heaven into earth. It prepares the vessel for the oil. It makes room for the miracle. And the scriptures illustrate this so powerfully in the story of Elijah on Mount Carmel in 1 Kings 18. After years of drought, Elijah declared to King Ahab, "I hear the sound of the abundance of rain." There was no cloud in the sky, no wind in the air, no evidence to the natural eye, but Elijah expected rain because God had spoken. He sent his servant 7 times to look toward the sea, and each time the servant returned with the same report, nothing. But Elijah did not waver. He bowed in prayer, face to the ground, until finally, on the 7th time, the servant reported a small cloud the size of a man's hand. That was all Elijah needed, because expectation does not wait for the full storm to rejoice. It celebrates the smallest sign as the beginning of the fulfillment. Within moments, the heavens grew black with clouds, the wind rose, and there was a great rain, just as the prophet had declared. This is the way expectation works. It sees what others cannot. It believes what the natural eye denies. It prepares in advance for what has not yet arrived. Child of God, if the Lord has spoken reward over you, then lift your head high, open your hands, and live with expectation, because God has drawn a faith-filled hearts that are ready to receive. If you expect nothing, you will prepare for nothing, and often you will receive nothing. But if you expect God to move, if you prepare as though the promise is already on its way, you will not be caught empty-handed when the breakthrough comes. Expectation is what causes the barren woman to decorate the nursery before conception. It is what causes the farmer to till the soil before the clouds gather. It is what causes the believer to praise before the walls of Jericho fall. Expectation is not denial of reality. It is declaration of destiny. It is the courage to say, I will believe the report of the Lord, not the report of man. I will stand on his promise, not on my circumstances. And tonight, as you stand at the end of this season, as this month draws to a close, let your expectation rise, for the Lord has promised reward. Do not walk into the next season with doubt. Do not cross into the coming days with fear. Step forward with expectancy, with praise already on your lips, with thanksgiving already in your heart, with preparation already underway, because the God who promises faithful, the word he spoke will not return void, and the reward is already on its way. Expect the unexpected, believe for the impossible, prepare for the unimaginable, for heaven responds to expectation, and when you align your faith with his promise, you position yourself for the overflow. Tonight is not just another night, it is prophetic, it is appointed, it is pregnant with destiny. Open your heart, lift your voice, and declare, I expect my God to do what he said, and I will be ready when it comes. And you will see, just as the widow saw her son return, just as Elijah saw the rain fall, just as countless saints through history have testified, the expectation of the righteous shall not be cut off, but it shall end in glory, reward, and overflowing joy. Child of God, this is not a coincidence. This is divine timing. The month may end, but your story is just beginning. Tonight is your appointed hour. Stand firm, believe, and declare, my season of waiting is turning into a season of winning. My night of sorrow is becoming a morning of joy. My God is faithful, and tonight I will be rewarded. So walk out of this month with courage, lift your head high, and step into September knowing this: the promise is not far, the breakthrough is not delayed, the reward is here tonight.